You know, there's a lot of stuff being spoken about in the news by deceptive people like Adam Schiff, and what we really need on a Tuesday night, and Happy New Year, by the way, Larry, is we need you to cut through all of the nonsense and lies and help everybody understand exactly what's going on. How are you tonight, Larry?
I'm doing well, Jason. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, you're looking well, but I know you're quite irritated about the unconstitutional and fraudulent proceedings being seemingly spearheaded by Adam Schiff. What can you tell us about this whole thing?
Well, I can tell you it's part of the kabuki dance, the theater in Washington, D.C. There's no reality anymore. This is just what you can get away with. You lie, cheat, steal. It's an effort to drive the president out, obviously. It's going to result in impeachment. It could weaken him enough, I hope not, that he won't be reelected. But, and I don't tell people who to vote for, by the way, but I know who I vote for. In any event, what really galls me, Jason, this is why I spoke with you this morning, is that this kabuki theater is being conducted by both political parties. And we know that the Republicans, particularly in the Senate, they have subpoena power. Why aren't they using that subpoena power? They could bring Adam Schiff right in front of the Judiciary Committee, Lindsey Graham, and have him testify about how he set the president up with this whistleblower, all of his lies and everything else. Instead, the Republicans are hanging back in the Senate. They're allowing these lunatics in the House of Representatives led by Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Gerald Nadler and company to try to destroy the president of the United States. So in many ways, the Republican establishment is complicit in what is going on because they have the ability to push back, but they won't do it. It's a lot like the Justice Department. Where is our Justice Department? Why aren't they bringing people in? They have civil investigative demands. They have grand jury subpoenas. Lies have been conducted. This is sedition. They're trying to, in fact, take over the United States through improper means. And for the American people to watch this, you don't get the full story, as I frequently say on Fox News. You get the full story by listening to Crowdsource the Truth because, excuse me, the establishment of both political parties have always wanted to take this president down.
Yeah, well, it's a good question about Lindsey Graham. I don't know why people suddenly were warming up to Lindsey Graham thinking he was some kind of good guy. Hasn't he been sort of a snake forever? I mean, he was best buddies with John McCain. We've reviewed on this show many times this image of John McCain, I forget Blumenthal's first name, but this Libyan ISIS leader, Jimmy and Joanne Moriarty, have told us quite a bit about him. Here's Lindsey Graham giving the guy an award. Lindsey Graham, I mean, he's complicit with all this, as you said.
Lindsey Graham is the one who turned over the Steele dossier to McCain, who then turned it over to the FBI. You know, I mean, again, they were complicit with Hillary Clinton and the Democrats, either wittingly or unwittingly, but that's a fact. And Lindsey Graham likes to latch on to people. He's like a little bird that lives on the top of an elephant. Okay, he's got to have somebody, or a jockey. Okay, but he's got to have somebody to drive him. And what I take issue with is that, you know, when they put him on TV, and our committee is going to look into this. You know, people ask questions, even Hannity. Well, what are you going to do? Are you going to actually pursue some remedies? Oh no, I'm just trying to get the truth. Well, no one cares about the truth anymore because there is no truth. What are you going to do to bring about justice? And the answer is, from his standpoint, I'm just going to, quote, get the truth. Of course, the truth, according to Lindsey Graham. And, you know, he's a very personable guy. I've met him. I asked him to look into the mass illegal surveillance. It looked like he was sincere. He gave me the card of his chief of staff. I called. Nothing ever happened. But that's typical in Capitol Hill. But Lindsey Graham is also very defensive, because many people think that he's a closet gay. Let's be honest about it. And he does not want that out there. And even the left smeared him during the Kavanaugh hearings, you know, trashing him on that, when in fact the left obviously is very pro-gay rights. I mean, there are many on the right who are too. I have nothing against gay people. But, I mean, he is afraid of being exposed himself. And that's why he's all talk, no action, and frankly, not much better than Charles Grassley was as head of the Judiciary Committee.
But it seems like Trump is sort of like friendly with Lindsey Graham now. He's spoken positively about Lindsey Graham. He must know that this is, you've got a rat inside the house.
Well, he's flattered. I think that Lindsey Graham is good at flattering the president. The president took the flattery and returned some favor, but I don't know that he's feeling too kindly about Lindsey Graham today after Lindsey Graham trashed him over pulling out of Syria.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. But the president sometimes, I love the president, but everything he does revolves around Fox News. Less so in the immediate past. He's beginning to understand how it's moving left. But, he sees Lindsey Graham on Hannity or some other show and he thinks, well, this guy's for me. But he'll get stabbed in the back. These Republican establishment creatures, they can't wait to take this president down.
Well, I guess they're sort of waiting in the wings, right? I mean, we've heard so much about, look, it's one thing to sit around and say politics is corrupt and this and that, but this whole thing with Burisma and Joe Biden's son, and then just today in True Pundit, Larry, there was this article telling us that Joe Biden himself received $900,000 for lobbying from Burisma, the company that the president was asking the president of Ukraine to look into. I mean, it's so strange to me, Larry. They're building like a house of cards based on lies. We've got this foundation that Trump has done something wrong by asking an international counterpart to investigate international corruption that by all measures deserves and requires investigation. So they've sort of lied to people and gaslit the American public to get them to think that somehow investigating this type of serious international corruption is an impeachable offense. And now they're carrying on with this impeachment. Can you walk us through a little bit what's improper about this? We've heard there's been no House vote. You were very involved in the impeachment process with Bill Clinton, which was rightly deserved. What is not happening properly here?
Technically speaking, of course, they are supposed to vote on starting an impeachment inquiry, and the Republicans are supposed to get subpoena power as well in that investigation. That's what happened with Bill Clinton, with the impeachment, because it was Congressman Bob Barr and I and some others who really started that at the time. So they're not giving the Republicans an opportunity to gather evidence to defend the president. That's why I say, over on the other side of the Capitol, in the Senate, they can do that. But they're not doing that. And they're hanging back. And instead, you just hear people like Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows and others, crying on TV. And I like Mark Meadows. I've never spoken with Jim Jordan, but I think Mark Meadows is a good guy, one of the few. But he has no power. Jordan has no power. All they can do is go on Hannity and complain. And that's what sticks in my craw. Now, as far as the president asking the president of the Ukraine to do him a favor to look into the corruption in the Ukraine as concerns the Democratic Party and the Bidens. Well, what's the guy to do when your own attorney general is going AWOL? Bill Barr. I mean, what has Barr done?
Or is he investigating? People are saying he's in Italy investigating. Well,
I think he probably took a junket to Italy because he felt like having, a good cup of cappuccino, frankly. This is what they do in Washington, D.C. to deflect. Oh, we're doing a broad investigation. We've got people in other countries doing an investigation. Right. I simply don't believe that it's a bona fide investigation. And in the end, it'll probably occur after the next election, any kind of report, and no one will be held accountable. I've said this a million times on your show, in my columns, on my show, my radio show, Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman on Radio America, is that this is all for show, it's not for dough, and in the end, the establishment protects itself. It's the National Football League, the American Conference, and the National Conference. They're stuffing money into their pockets right and left. They're acquiring power. During the Clinton years, it was Mary Matlin and James Carville, two bookends, polar opposites. Mm-hmm. One supporting the Republican impeachment, the other supporting Bill Clinton, frequently in illegal ways. Now you have Kellyanne Conway and her husband, George Conway. Okay, can anyone honestly believe these people are living in the same house? But, in Washington, D.C., it's possible because this is simply a game. It's a game. George Conway humiliates his wife every single day, disgraces her, mean, and Trump doesn't let her go because she's probably loyal to him. But this is Washington. There's no reality. This, in and of itself, tells you the story. And I like Kellyanne, and I hope she leaves the guy and hope she divorces the guy. I mean, there shouldn't even be an appearance of being involved with this guy. First of all, he's uglier than sin, and it's not even believable that she's married to the guy. But this is Washington. There's no reality. There's no truth. Gee, I can be married to some guy that's trashing the president that I work for, and it's unreal. This is Washington.
Let me take you back a second, Larry, to William Barr. And I know that lawyers, doctors, and engineers absolutely hate hypothetical questions, but I want to try to understand William Barr a little bit better. And, you know, when we were sort of wondering who was going to be nominated Attorney General, I said you should be the Attorney General. And although you're so politically, you're sort of like the third rail there in Washington, it'd be very difficult to get you confirmed, but you would make an excellent Attorney General, in my opinion. And let me ask you this.
That's an understatement, Jason. I mean, I'm radioactive.
That's
because
what
you know
I was
what?
looking for.
They don't want anybody that would actually do the job.
Right.
They don't want anybody to do that.
Right.
I'd have this thing over in 2 weeks. It would all be over. They'd all be locked up.
And that's exactly what I wanted to ask you. If you were the Attorney General and you woke up in the morning in Washington, D.C. and saw in the newspaper that Jeffrey Epstein, one of the most important prisoners, suspects, whatever, in a long, long time, suddenly shows up dead, would you give a press conference saying that you're appalled, or what would you do in that exact scenario as the Attorney General?
Well, I would open a real investigation, not covering it up. It's clear that Epstein's death has been covered up. There's no way that he committed suicide, and if he did commit suicide, he was pushed to commit suicide. I believe it was a mafia hit. How did Epstein acquire all that money? No one knows. He was in with the mafia. People suspect that the Clintons may be behind it. 80 people died plus during the Clinton administration. They had the most to lose. I'm not saying they did it, but it needs to be investigated. And you know, it's gone into Never Never Land, just like the massacre in Las Vegas went into Never Never Land. I believe that Paddock was a federal informant or agent. He went off the reservation. He murdered many, many people, and the government doesn't want to own up that he was one of them. So this is what goes on. It's why no one can believe anything the government says anymore. Nothing. I believe nothing they say. And it's been that way for a long time, and it's sad. But that's why I do what I do. But that's also why someone like me would never be made Attorney General, because I would get the job done.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to sign up for a petition to have me appointed special prosecutor or special counsel, go to freedomwatchusa.org. That's great. We're about 31,000 people signed that. But even the president can't do that because he gets checked. And so somebody like Bill Barr, you know, he may do a few things that are good, but he's not going to clean up the mess at the Justice Department. And he himself is under threat of impeachment, of criminal contempt. And that's why he let Comey go twice when even the Inspector General, an Obama appointee, Michael Horowitz, recommended criminal prosecution as an offering to the Democrats. Leave me alone. I'll leave you alone. He lets Comey walk scot-free. Where's McCabe? Where's that indictment? You're not going to see that probably either. Because if you're higher up in Washington, D.C., there's an unwritten rule that you're protected. You're a protected species. And that's what you heard last week when I was in front of Judge Helen Siegel-Uvel on the case I brought against Mueller for Jerry Corsi.
Yeah.
You know, and I thank Judge Uvel for allowing me to advocate in a very strong way. I thank her for coming out of her chambers, because most of the judges there are afraid of the light. They will not come into the light because they don't want to make a hard decision on a political case because it could cost them a higher appointment, or they're returning favors to the benefactors that got them their job. But at least Uvel had the courage, but it was clear she's very partisan, and I pushed back, and she took it. So I at least thank her for that.
Has there been any ruling or order from the judge since we were in the court last week?
No, but I'll tell you something. I'm not hopeful because of the partisan nature of her discussion with me. She stood me up initially, and ordinarily the government would have to get up, use the term government loosely, the Justice Department, because it was their motion to dismiss. and she worked me over for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I wrote a column about it. You can find it at worldnetdaily.com and our website at freedomwatchusa.org. Because there's clearly precedent, her own precedent, that we can sue Mueller personally for constitutional rights violations. And Mueller violated the Constitution with regard to Dr. Corsi by threatening him with indictment if he wouldn't lie under oath. That violated his First Amendment rights. There was illegal surveillance by Mueller. That's the Fourth Amendment. And Judge Uvell, in another case, found that that was actionable in a personal capacity against a government official that would violate the constitutional rights of the American people. And I had a case involving Notre Trulock, who was the energy investigator who uncovered Wenho Lee taking all of the nuclear codes from Los Alamos Nuclear Laboratory. And the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals in Richmond found that I could sue Louis Freeh, the FBI director, who chilled the free speech of Notre Trulock because he wanted to write a book about how the FBI was incompetent in not catching Wenho Lee, why he had to push the FBI to do an investigation. So there was lots of authority. The first thing that Judge Uvell said to me, how do I know that Robert Mueller himself is accountable? You were there.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
I said, Your Honor, he's the head of the special counsel's office. He has the only one with the mandate. These were top prosecutors. He had to know, he had to give the directive, just like Louis Freeh did in the Trulock case. And I said, if you don't believe that, you live on Mars. And she said, well, I guess I live on Pluto. Or I said, you live on Pluto. She said, I live on Mars. But this is the partisan nature of the judiciary today. And we'll win on appeal. Whether or not we win in front of Uvell, I don't know. I hope that she accepted what I said, and I hope she takes it to heart. She is intelligent. But you just have to keep punching, and you have to keep trying, because the only alternative is a violent revolution, the way things are today. And I don't advocate that. I advocate peaceful and legal means. But this country is about ready to explode, because the American people have begun to understand that the government is a pathological liar, by and large.
Yeah, and I want to come back to that in a moment, Larry, but just while we're talking about Robert Mueller, he's essentially disappeared. What's happened to Robert Mueller? He's just gone quiet. Nothing is in his purview. We haven't heard a word from him.
Well, I don't know if this is true or not. It's rumored that he drinks heavily.
Yeah.
It's rumored that he would leave the office at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and go to a bar. I don't know if that's true or not. But who knows? Maybe he's in rehab. I don't know.
Doubtful. I think he's cooking up another nothing burger and having a double scotch with that.
Well, he may be sitting at the Willard Hotel with a fifth of scotch. I don't know. I don't know where he is.
He may well. But I think it's a failed effort by Robert Mueller. Everybody realizes that it's sort of pointless for him to do anything at this point other than kind of skulk away. But what you were saying about a revolution, we've seen kind of hints of that in the Antifa violence, the Black Lives Matters violence. We were recently speaking with Joel Gilbert about his brilliant film, The Trayvon Hoax. And there was a little bit of a dust-up with your YouTube channel. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, that's very interesting. And yes, I mean, there is talk of that. And I've always said peaceful and legal means. I'm trying to head off a violent revolution. But I had Joel on my radio show a few weeks ago talking about the Trayvon hoax, how a false witness had been presented, totally fraudulent, to get George Zimmerman convicted. And he could have done life imprisonment in Florida. You have, old Sparky, the electric chair. He could have done.
Wow.
He could have been executed. It's very, very serious. So I had him on, but I also was announcing that we're going to be commissioning our citizens' grand juries to indict Biden and his son Hunter for the bribery and corruption that obviously took place in the Ukraine, where billions of dollars, were flowing in the direction of companies that Hunter Biden was working for, and where Vice President Biden at the time was greasing it for his son. And no sooner than that show hit, when it was up on podcast and on the internet, I get an email sent to me by our webmaster saying from YouTube that you've been suspended for hate speech and everything else. I said, you got to be kidding me. There was nothing hateful in that. You can go back and listen to it, because we're now back on YouTube. There was no hate speech. But what happened was, I think that somebody from the Biden campaign, or in and around Biden and his son Hunter themselves, leaned on YouTube to remove the channel and to suspend us. So I got a hold of the lawyer from YouTube and Google. It's the same thing. Google owns YouTube, who I've been litigating against and have been litigating against with regard to my antitrust case concerning the social media companies. And I said, look, if you don't put me back and you don't restore Freedom Watch's YouTube channel, you're going to be sued in 48 hours, and I'm going to join the Bidens as defendants for collusion on information and belief. And I think that scared Google and YouTube. They said, they don't want to be looking like they're bringing down the possible next president of the United States, and they restored my YouTube channel on behalf of Freedom Watch. But that's the way you have to deal with these people, through strength, because they'll roll you if you're not strong with them. And I've got the same thing going with Laura Loomer. They took her off of all these different social media posts. We brought lawsuits. And clearly, I go listen to that radio show. I said nothing that was hate speech other than the fact that I was going to have the Bidens indicted. And, when they sent me an email coming back, they blamed it on the Trayvon thing because they don't want to be associated with having taken something that was retaliatory over Biden. But anyway, we're back on YouTube.
Yeah,
but
and we're
quite
actually...
apart from that,
Sorry, Larry. We're actually doing a special simulcast today. This video is being broadcast live right now, not only on Crowdsource the Truth and Crowdsource the Truth 2, but also on the Freedom Watch YouTube channel. So welcome to all of our viewers who are over there at Freedom Watch. And I got to say, Larry, that is just super awesome that you called up YouTube. So many YouTubers are upset when their channels get taken down, but only Larry Klayman can put the fear of God into YouTube.
Well, they know, Jason, that when I make a threat, I make good on it. You
Right.
see, I've never made a threat that I haven't made good on. And they did not want to be associated with colluding with Joe Biden. And that's what I believe happened to this day. It was not Joel's commentary on the Trayvon case.
Yeah, and getting back to the impeachment thing, I mean, it's all obviously tied to Joe Biden, and I'm not saying that to suggest that they're, all rallying around to specifically protect Joe Biden. But I think what's coming out now, particularly as we hear about all this stuff about Biden getting, Joe himself getting $900,000 for lobbying, President Trump is basically laying out the roadmap of the past, say, 50 to 60 years of corruption. He's showing us the business plan for Congress, and they're all freaking out because if you start pulling on this thread, the corrupt sweater unravels and they're all left holding the bag. Isn't that right?
Well, that's right. I've never known a congressman or a senator, if you went to lunch with him, that ever took money out of his pocket. Okay. And one of the few things I agree with Elizabeth Warren on is there should be a lifetime ban on lobbying after you leave Congress, but that's a side issue. What is the absurdity of this entire thing, notwithstanding this impeachment inquiry, notwithstanding Senate Republicans watching the president be eaten alive, is the fact that all of this is occurring and trying to take Joe Biden down in terms of the Ukraine matter. Now, yeah, the guy should be prosecuted, but there's absolutely no chance that this person, who basically at this point is at a level of being brain dead. I mean, he can't articulate a sentence. He doesn't even know where he is half the time. I feel bad for him. I don't think the guy's going to make it through the primaries. He's in very poor health. It's obvious he's got some kind of neurological problem. Is that, if you think this is cute to take Biden down, he's not going to be the nominee of the Democrat Party anyway. Hillary Clinton now says she wants to run again. Yeah. And that probably will happen. Because they consider her, quote, more moderate than Elizabeth Warren. And she made a comment yesterday, I'm going to run and win the election again.
Yeah,
I think
that's
she's back
ridiculous. She's delusional. She lost last time, and she still doesn't realize that.
Just a very hateful person. And, this is not hate speech. I call her the wicked witch of the left, which is what she is. She's a wicked, wicked, wicked person.
I think that if you actually hate a specific person, it's okay to say that. I don't understand what this hate speech is. This is a new invention by the left. I think broad, hateful, racist comments are objectionable, but if there's good reason to make hateful comments about Hillary Clinton. I think, Larry, the whole concept of she's moderate, she's this, she's that. Hillary Clinton is a political brand name that people know. They put her in the race, and it's like Mike Tyson fighting Evander Holyfield, right? Everybody wants to see that. They're going to run her.
Well, that's right. And look, she did come close last time, even if she was favored to win by a landslide. Elizabeth Warren is not electable. I mean, she'll be eaten alive if she runs. Maybe you'll have a ticket with Elizabeth Warren and Hillary Clinton. Of course, Hillary Clinton would never be number two.
Right.
And Elizabeth Warren being vice president, maybe that would be acceptable. But, you know, this just shows you the state of the country, that this is being seriously discussed and that she thinks she has a chance of winning if she runs again. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I think that just people should pay attention to just even the language that they use. I talk a lot about social engineering, and when Hillary Clinton says something like, "I'm going to win again," these words have power, and they put ideas into people's heads that, you know, Hillary was cheated, that Trump is doing something illegal with Ukraine. I mean, when you really get on the street level and start asking people questions, you go to these protests, you go to these stupid book signings, and you ask the people who are there and support Hillary Clinton serious questions about the facts of these matters, and it's very, very clear that they don't know anything about it. They've listened to 5 seconds on the news, or they've looked at a headline and they formulate their opinion based on that. So Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, all these people, Adam Schiff, they're out there putting out these punchy little sound bites, little word statements that people kind of absorb into their brains, and they're trying to affect what people think with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's unfortunately the result of our generally uneducated public. And I've got to the point, as I've said many times in the last several weeks, where I can't take it anymore. It's like the movie Network, you know, sticking your head out the window was a movie when I was a kid. And I watch Fox maybe for about 10 minutes a day. I like Bill Hemmer, you know, in the morning he reports the news in a straight fashion. But I turn it off. I can't watch prime time. I can't watch CNN. I want to see what they're saying then for about 10 minutes. And then I turn on the Golf Channel because there's some reality to that. I sent out a video of Jack Nicklaus's Golf My Way the other day, you know, in tongue-in-cheek. Great video, by the way, if you play golf. I mean, greatest golfer of all time, had a great golf swing. But there's more reality to that. And, you know, every now and then I play golf again. I didn't play for 35 years. But at least you have your own fate in your own hands. If you hit a good shot, you did it. If it's a bad shot, you did it. But when I go into court, I can make the greatest argument in the world. But if I have a partisan Clinton or Obama appointed judge, that argument goes right into the trash. And then I got to take it up on appeal. That costs more time and more money. Then you go to the D.C. Circuit, and 90% of those judges are Obama and Clinton appointees. And it can work the other way, too, because I sue Republicans. But the judiciary is so politicized. And everything in society is so politicized today. Bar associations, the judiciary, Congress, obviously, the media. There's no truth. It's just what people can get away with. And the judges get away with it a lot because they have so-called immunity. That's got to come off, frankly. You know, if I ever had the ability to do it, I would make a few changes to the Constitution. And one of the things I would do would be to remove the immunity of federal judges.
Well, how about the prosecutors as well? That was something that came up during the hearing with you and Dr. Corsi last week, this qualified immunity that was in question for Robert Mueller.
Well, and in fact, I pointed out to Judge Uvell that if a prosecutor submits false testimony and knows it or is reckless about doing it,
right,
that they can be personally liable. There's a Seventh Circuit case directly on point on that. And in fact, that's the theory we're using on behalf of Ryan Bundy, because we've sued the prosecutors and the FBI and the Bureau of Land Management and two clients by the name of Stephen Stewart and Rick Loveland, who were tried along with the Bundy defendants, and the government didn't even put any evidence on to try to convict them. But they were in prison for almost 2 years. So we countersued for that. And who did we get as a judge? A Trump-appointed judge who is scared of the case, and I have to keep pushing and pushing to get him to hear it. He transferred the Ryan Bundy case to Nevada, and then I retooled the case and brought it in D.C. It's still pending there. God knows what he's going to do, and is frightened of the Llewellyn and Stewart case because they don't like to go up against the establishment of both parties, of either party, because that will cost them a higher appointment later when the confirmation process is underway. And how do these judges get to be judges? Check FEC records for a lot of the newly appointed judges on the bench, even the Trump ones.
Yeah.
They gave a lot of money to the president's campaign or the senator of the state that they came from. The senator recommends them for senatorial privilege. And then their law firms. There's one judge that I have on a case now, an Obama-appointed judge, Randolph Moss, who gave $34,000 of his own money to Obama and Democrat candidates. And he comes from WilmerHale, and they gave much more money than that. They got a Democrat judge on the bench, Randolph Moss, and they got a Republican on the bench. And, you know, this is a great thing for WilmerHale. They go in front of these judges, and they have them in their hip pocket.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they're best buddies.
Oh, yeah, this is our system. It is corrupt to the core in terms of the legal system, in terms of how these judges are appointed. Occasionally, a great judge breaks through, like Judge Royce Lamberth and Judge Stanley Sporkin, who's now retired. But most of these judges are politicians in robes. And, you know, that's why you don't get justice frequently when you have a case that has a political element to it, unless you're on the right side of the street.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you know, Larry, I think the shows that you and I have done, we've known each other for over a year now, and we've done quite a few shows and a lot of different things together. I really appreciate you involving me in the Citizens Grand Jury and all that stuff. I think people, including myself, are getting a better picture of the details of how this works, because it's one thing to say, oh, you know, politics, it's corrupt. It's something I've been thinking about a lot lately because, you know, even very intelligent and justice-minded people have a tendency to kind of write it off as, that's just the way it goes. But when you really think about it and understand it, how it stymies the system from providing any real justice, from, you know, on every level, providing any, you know, consequences to these kind of terrible actions. As you said, it doesn't seem like Andrew McCabe is going anywhere. I think if a regular person went and robbed a bank or did any of the, you know, $1-million type crimes these guys are doing, you'd be indicted within a week.
And it's not just political. Let me give you an example of something that happened yesterday. I brought a case in my private capacity for an individual by the name of Jackie Beard Robinson. She was supposed to be on Housewives of New Jersey with Melissa Gorga. I never knew much about Melissa Gorga until this case. She's a fashionista. Jackie is a fashionista. The two of them met each other in South Florida. They formed a joint venture in the design industry, you know, clothing, women's clothing, and they went their own separate ways. Jackie Robinson was supposed to be on Housewives of New Jersey, you know, as a guest, and it's good for promotion for the business and everything else. And she signed a release before she went on, as you frequently do with these shows. Well, it just so happens that Melissa Gorga, Andy Cohen, Bravo, and NBC defamed my client, Jackie Beard Robinson, claimed that she had stolen merchandise from that joint venture. I then brought a defamation lawsuit, which is a growth industry these days. By the way, anybody that has a defamation case, you can contact me. I think I'm the world's expert at this point as a plaintiff's lawyer. And I filed it in South Florida in federal court. The judge there, Clinton appointee, who doesn't care for me much, I'm sure, Judge Middlebrooks, referred it to arbitration. There was an arbitration provision in the release. But arbitration would not apply if the release was procured by fraud, or also if there's an unequal bargaining position. But anyway, it went to arbitration. The case sat there for almost a year, and nothing was happening. And I wrote a very polite email, which I copied on opposing counsel. You know, why are you, the arbitration service, JAMS, billing my client all this money for the arbitration, because you have to share the price of it, when nothing's happening? And I pushed and pushed and pushed. And they demanded payment up front before we got the decision. The arbitration service, JAMS, obviously knew that the decision was against us, so they want the money before they issued the opinion. I'm getting to the point here. And the way this thing was issued, even when my client paid the money up front, $10,500 about,
wow,
they still didn't release it. They said, oh, the arbitrator's out of town. Well, we have email in the 21st century. Why didn't we get the opinion? Because you know what? He didn't write it probably until the last few days,
right,
when the arbitration service pushed it. And the thing is so factually and legally incorrect, it's an embarrassment. A 10-year-old could have written this thing, and it's against my client. And I've demanded all the documentation of the communications with the arbitration service, JAMS, and the arbitrator, because I think either this is an intentionally false decision or it's grossly negligent. Because here's the moral to the story, is these big corporations, particularly in the entertainment industry, insert these arbitration clauses into releases and contracts because these big arbitrators like JAMS, they're the ones that put these arbitrations together, favor them because they're not going to get business unless they generally rule in favor of the very large corporate vested interest and against the little guy.
wow,
And that's why these companies want the arbitration, generally speaking. And that is a corruption not much different than what you see in Washington, D.C. Money talks, nobody walks. The powerful can really run roughshod over the average person. And I'm not done yet. I'm going to take an appeal of this, and I may bring a separate case. I think there was nefarious conduct involved. And, so I'm fighting on a daily basis on a number of fronts. Go to LarryKlayman.com and see the press release for Jackie Beard Robinson. It's out on the internet. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of media because Melissa Gorga, for some unknown reason, is a big name, in the media industry, and Andy Cohen is too. But, it's not just in the political world. It's the rich and powerful rule the school. And they own, by and large, the judges, the arbitrators, and everybody else. And you can understand how African Americans feel and how other minorities feel when there's a legitimate case, because there isn't a level playing field. And that's why I'm kind of like a civil rights lawyer in many ways, is that I represent the underdog against these very big interests.
It's good information, Larry, because, I don't think most people had any idea this JAMS thing even existed, and, an arbitration clause. I mean, look, if somebody's signing a contract to be on a TV show, obviously they're excited, particularly if it's somebody who's not that sophisticated in terms of law and contracts and all that. You get a contract for money to be on a show, you're going to want to sign it. You have no idea what this arbitration clause is all about. And this JAMS thing, I mean, this is a company. What you've just said makes perfect sense. I think that's valuable information for people to keep in mind.
Great name. She got jammed. Jackie Beard Robinson. I'm going to have her on my radio show this week, so listen to that. Tune into Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman, because here's what happened. She signs a release. A release is only good up to the point you sign it. If something happens afterwards, it's no good. Now, this arbitrator wrote a dishonest opinion saying that we didn't cite any New York law. The arbitration was in New York. We cited a case from the Second Circuit, which followed a California statute incorporated right into the case, which says that you can't release someone for something that is yet to occur. And my client was defamed as being a crook after the release was signed. And clearly, you're not released from defaming someone for a crime. That's called defamation per se. You don't even have to prove damages. And in Florida, you don't even have to prove malice under the law of Florida. We brought the case originally in Florida. So this is what we're dealing with today. And the average American understands this. They've had a bad experience in family court, or they've had a bad experience somewhere else, but they feel helpless in the legal system.
Yeah.
But if you're rich and powerful, not all judges, there's some good judges, particularly in Florida in the state court. There are a lot of good ones there because they're answerable to the people. If they're no good, they can be voted out. But these federal judges, they're in the hip pocket of the rich and powerful by and large, with some exceptions like Royce Lamberth and Stanley Sporkin, retired, and some others that I know. But they're the minority.
Yeah.
And the majority They scratch the backs of the people that got them their jobs.
And it's part of the reason why I've become so interested in the law. I've attended several hearings now, many that you've been involved in, some here in New York with the Epstein stuff. It's fascinating to watch what's going on in court. And it takes me back to Adam Schiff. I've spoken a lot about lawfare. You know, he strikes me as an absolute dope. People are going to remember the anecdote that I told. I can't remember if it was Passover or Yom Kippur. There's a limited number of Jewish holidays that I observe, but during one of them, I was taking the train to see my family, and Adam Schiff was on the train. I had a short conversation with him. I said to him, "Hey, did anybody ever tell you you look just like Adam Schiff?" And he said, "I am Adam Schiff." And I asked him, where's any evidence of Russian collusion? You know, it was 2 years ago. He got so red in the face, it was insane. But the reason I bring him up now is that he has a law degree from Harvard. And I'm looking for it here on Wikipedia here, but obviously he's a lawyer. He understands the law very well, Larry. And just like you're describing, you know, this arbitrator or whatever it is, he can throw that kind of screwy decision at somebody. And most people, I think the arbitrator knows, are either going to run out of money, not have access to a lawyer who can adequately understand that type of manipulation. And basically, 9 times out of 10, that's going to make it go away. So the question becomes, to what extent is Adam Schiff using his legal prowess, whatever that may be, his Juris Doctorate degree from Harvard Law School, to jam up President Trump in a game of congressional lawfare?
Well, make no mistake about it, in the words of Richard Nixon, he used to use that phrase, Adam Schiff is not stupid. Adam Schiff is smart. But he knows that in today's world, you can lie, cheat, and steal and get away with it. And Bill Clinton, you know, proved that pretty well during the Clinton years. And that became a model for other politicians, Democrat and Republican. So, and he knows that he can deceive the people with lies. You know, it's like Goebbels' propaganda ministry under Adolf Hitler and the Third Reich,
right.
To a lesser extent. And if you tell a lie enough, you'll even start to believe it.
Yeah.
So, you know, he's not stupid. And there is a method to this madness. And if you look at the polls right now, and I do believe them to some extent, the president is losing support. Now, I got to say this. I love the president. You know, I'm doing everything I can to protect him. But it was not smart, after this Russian collusion thing was finally finished, even though it wasn't a crime and it's not impeachable, it was not smart to ask the Ukraine president, Zelensky, to investigate the Bidens. It was not smart. It was dumb.
Really?
And who got him into that? Rudy Giuliani. And, you know, I don't think Rudy's stupid either, but maybe he's on the sauce a little too much. and he got carried away, you know, and he had good intentions. But no sooner than he was claiming credit, you know, and doing a victory lap on the Russian collusion thing, and I don't think he had much to do with that either, frankly. I mean, it went on way too long. You know my criticism on that. Then he enmeshes the president in another scandal, which in some ways is worse than the Russian collusion hoax, the witch hunt, because they've given the Democrats something to use. And by asking the Ukrainian president to investigate a political rival, it validates in many people's minds the lie that was being told about Russian collusion. And that is why now, according to some polls, it may not be accurate, a majority of the American people want to see impeachment. I don't believe that poll is accurate, but I do believe the president has lost support. And his own party, I don't think you can count on them. Whether it's Mitt Romney or anybody else, they've been waiting for the opportunity to take him out. And if Romney, you know, succeeds and his band of you know, rhinos over in the Senate succeed, don't think that Vice President Pence will get the nomination in 2020, because, you know, I like Pence, but Pence is not. He has no gravitas. He really can't speak very well, and he's like a piece of wood.
Well, he's just not Donald Trump. People who support Trump would not.
He doesn't connect with the American people.
No.
And they'll unfairly vilify him for his Christian faith, for which he should be, you know, commended. But I think he's a good man. But Trump could never be elected. Pence could never be elected on his own. So think somebody like Romney will try to weasel his way in there to get the nomination in 2020.
These guys have got to be smoking crack. Mitt Romney already lost. Nobody's going to vote for Mitt Romney. People voted for Donald Trump, I think, not because he's a Republican, but because he's Trump. And he said he's going to go in there and he's going to drain the swamp. And now he's kind of doing that, I think. Ed Buck being arrested, Jeffrey Epstein being arrested. Those are two people we would not have seen arrested under a Hillary Clinton presidency, I don't think.
He gave the prosecutors leeway. He did not cook it. I don't think that Trump was behind arresting Epstein. I mean, they were attempting to tar him with Epstein at the time.
True.
But he at least gave them some autonomy to do something, and they did it in that very limited way. But in terms of Bill Barr, don't expect much out of Barr. And if anything happens, it'll happen until after the election. And all this stuff, this is PR. This is damage control. Is this stuff that's been rumored in the last few days, and of course Hannity on Fox eats it up because he gets viewers to listen, and others. That Durham, this guy Durham up there in Connecticut is expanding the Russian collusion investigation. I don't believe it. Just last week it was reported by Politico that he hasn't interviewed one witness.
What's he doing?
So far. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he's collecting a paycheck.
Wow.
I don't know what he's doing. But I just don't... Jason, I've been doing this for going on 30 years. Nobody that's higher up has ever been held accountable during my time as a crime fighter at Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch by the Justice Department. They burn the lower level person or middle level person, and everybody walks off scot-free.
You know, it's funny, Larry, because I don't disagree with what you're saying, and it always makes me feel so sort of hopeless when we get done talking, because it seems like nothing's going to happen. But I still do have hope that something will happen. I think that Trump is trying to do the right thing, and I agree with you. I don't think that William Barr is necessarily acting in the way that he should. But what can we do? I mean, what can people do who are watching?
This is why I say support our citizens' grand jury. Sign our petition. You just had it up to make me special counsel, just to make a point. They're not going to make me special counsel. They don't want anybody who would actually be a real special counsel.
Right.
But you need to support Freedom Watch, freedomwatchusa.org, and the media like Crowdsource, The Truth, and others, because we are the alternative conservative media. We're not spewing BS every night to boost our ratings. It's coming from the heart. And if people are going to take action, they have to know the facts of life. They can't continue to be lied to.
Right.
And that's why I take issue with Fox. You know, daytime TV, it's anti-Trump. In the night, you know, it's the same story over and over again, same guests, same hope, major breaking story, Sean Hannity, there's going to be justice. No. It's not coming from the government. The government is our enemy. It is not our friend. And it was Ronald Reagan who said, the scariest words in the English language are, hi, I'm here from the government and I'm here to help you.
Yeah. Well, I will say, yeah, I know you love Ronald Reagan, and they've got a nice bust of him there at the radio station where you are doing Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. That's a good Ronald Reagan bust they have. I want to not disagree, but maybe disagree. I think it was a good decision for Donald Trump to ask the president of Ukraine, Mr. Zelensky, to look into this Biden thing, because not doing so would have been backing down. And whatever people want to say about Donald Trump, that's certainly not what he does. I think he's not asking for anything politically inappropriate. I don't think he even used the word favor. And if he did, did he?
I think I wasn't articulate enough, Jason. I didn't mean to say that Ukraine should not have been asked to look into it, nor China with regard to the Bidens, but for the president to do it himself on a line where he's obviously being surveilled, because he knew that from what happened during the Russian collusion investigation, that was not smart. Have your surrogate do that. Okay, have it done
Well,
behind the scenes.
maybe, but what he's done now, Larry, is that he's revealed. I don't know if I was aware that we had unelected CIA agents listening in on everything that the president does and taking these kind of, political and sort of legal actions when they want to. I mean, Adam Schiff, this is like a very coordinated effort where they've got these whistleblowers who suddenly are, the heroes of Washington, D.C. Every whistleblower without fail that I've ever spoken to tells a story about getting totally fired and having their life ruined, losing their marriage, losing their health, losing all their money.
That's right. I represent a number.
Yeah, they get crushed. And now they're protecting these guys, they're holding them up as heroes. They're obviously not whistleblowers. These are CIA operatives that are embedded in there. The CIA is controlling the White House. Trump is revealing
Absolutely.
that.
Hey, you're lucky if the CIA doesn't kill you. I mean, a lot of people think
I
the
think
CIA
you
killed
and I are lucky if the CIA doesn't kill us.
That's true. I mean, they have been known to do those things, So it's, this is a setup. The president's being framed. I'm just saying, be smarter about how you do it. There's nothing wrong in asking the Ukraine to look into this matter, nothing wrong in asking China to look into the Bidens, but don't do it yourself on an open line and hand it to the Adam Schiffs.
Right. Well, Larry, we started off this show asking, where is the Senate? And I've selected this image of a totally empty Senate. I've been to the office buildings there and knocked on the doors of the senators, and just as you've described, and frankly every single other person I've spoken to about this has described, they basically have a bunch of extremely well-groomed college recent graduates who are in the business of explaining to you the myriad reasons why whoever it is that you're trying to talk to can't talk to you. They're so busy doing, Fox News appearances and drinking booze at Paul's restaurant or wherever the hell they're going.
And if they do talk to you, they send somebody out that knows little to nothing.
Right.
He takes notes, and when he leaves, he throws his notes in the trash, literally.
Exactly.
I urge everybody to go up on YouTube or any place else you can get it and watch the movie Distinguished Gentleman with Eddie Murphy.
Right.
Distinguished Gentleman with Eddie Murphy. It is so accurate about what goes on in Washington. Just briefly, Jason, it's about an African-American con man from Miami who realizes that the biggest con is to become a congressman. The congressman from his district dies having sex with his secretary on the desk. That was kind of a reference to Nelson Rockefeller, right? And they have the same name, Jeff Jefferson. So he takes the name, and he gets elected on name recognition.
Right.
And when he gets to Washington, he falls in love with a woman, and the story is that he stops being a con man and works against the system. But it shows the corruption. It is so accurate, and it's so funny that I urge everybody to watch it. It's not funny, actually, but, Eddie Murphy has a good sense of humor. But it is an accurate recitation, Distinguished Gentleman.
Yeah, I remember when that film came out, and it's a funny idea. And, the other thing that people should be watching on YouTube, Larry, is the freshly restored Freedom Watch YouTube channel. People can watch a simulcast of our video right now. We've got 169 people viewing on Freedom Watch, which is great. We've got almost 600 viewing on Crowdsource The Truth. So I hope that each of the viewers that are watching us right now will visit freedomwatchusa.org and spend some money over there, help Larry and his team carry on the work that they're doing, because it's frustrating, but somebody's got to do it, Larry, and there's really nobody else who's doing the type of stuff that you're doing. This lawsuit that you're representing, my pleasure. The lawsuit that you're representing Dr. Corsi in against Robert Mueller is so important. I think that people don't even necessarily fully understand the implications of it. I wish we could have broadcast the proceedings inside the courtroom there. I think if the people of America could see what's going on inside these courtrooms, they'd be even more outraged than they are just by hearing us talk about it.
You're right. I've always been an advocate of cameras in the courtroom, and in some federal courts, they will allow them in. For instance, I have an argument for Sheriff Joe Arpaio in the Ninth Circuit on October 23rd. People are invited to come in San Francisco And the Ninth Circuit will allow cameras in the courtroom. I would bet that there will be cameras at that time. And it's very good, because transparency is, of course, the best disinfectant. Now, of course, you remember the O.J. trial where Judge Ito was showboating on camera. But it's still better to have that out in the open than have him showboating, behind closed doors.
Now, when you talk about transparency, wasn't there an executive order signed today, I think, having something to do with transparency? But what was that about?
I'm not sure. I've been wrapped up the whole day.
Yeah, it's tough to stay on top of everything here. Here's Trump.
I don't know this.
Here it is. This is interesting. Trump signs, this is from NBC, normally broadcasting nothing but crap, but let's see what they say. Oh, the video has expired. Why has the video expired? Anyway, Trump signed an executive order on transparency in federal enforcement. That'll be an interesting one to look into and see exactly what the details are. I always like getting your take on these types of things, because a headline on NBC doesn't really tell us what that's about.
Maybe he's decided the whistleblower shouldn't be kept confidential. I don't know. But I doubt it. That's a congressional prerogative. But in any event, yes, you need transparency, but there isn't any transparency, whether it's under Trump or under prior administrations. You file a Freedom of Information Act request, they stonewall it, they claim exemptions that don't exist. It takes years before you get documents. My former group, which does mostly just documents, doesn't get them for years.
Yeah.
And by the time they get them, the scandal's already over. So, it doesn't work. That's why if you bring a lawsuit and you get discovery, you can get, documents, in 30 days or even less if you subpoena the documents. But I mean, Freedom of Information Act is very important, but it's violated by all government agencies.
Well, and of course, even in the discovery process when you were suing Robert Mueller while the special counsel investigation was still going on, they withheld plenty of stuff from discovery. And I feel like there's a lot of people who do that. There's a lot of dishonest.
Well, let me give you an example. Bundy, okay? I wanted to get all the documents of the Bureau of Land Management and the FBI to help in Bundy's prosecution. And now I wanted to get documents to help on appeal of the dismissal of that supersedious indictment by a Trump Justice Department, believe it or not. And the FBI comes back and tells this judge, this very partisan judge, Colleen Kohler-Catelli, that it's going to take them 40 years to get the documents. I said, Your Honor, that can't be the case, because they already culled the documents for the Bundy prosecution. But she rubber stamps it. She doesn't care. And I finally convinced her to allow documents to be released about a whistleblower, Larry Wooten, who came forward with tales of having a kill list on the heads of the Bundys and other outrages. And I gave it to the Ninth Circuit to take a look at some of the documents. 40 years? I told the judge, I said, you know what? You'll be dead a long time, Your Honor. So will I. Even this young Justice Department lawyer, she'll be near death. Klayman Bundy's in his 70s. He'll be gone.
Yeah.
I mean, this is absurd. Yeah. She didn't care. She rubber stamped it anyway. Okay, take 40 years. Because she's partisan. She doesn't like Bundy. She doesn't like me. And this is the judiciary today.
It's really terrible.
It's unbelievable. 40 years.
Yeah, I mean, maybe someday we'll have artificial intelligence instead of judges, and at least that can be unbiased, perhaps. I know most people are afraid of artificial intelligence. You've reminded me, Larry, Laura Loomer is now an officially registered candidate for Congress in Florida's 21st District, and Twitter is still disallowing her access to that social media platform. This is absolutely election interference, and of course, Laura's got legal rights. She can take action. You're representing her in a number of cases, but it's a simple fact that even if this was handled quickly, the election's going to be over before Laura even is seen before a judge. So this is all a game that's rigged, and the people that know the rules are constantly shuffling the pieces around to screw with people like Laura and Klayman Bundy and now Donald Trump.
Yeah, and you know what? The Republican establishment is behind this too, and also the networks. You won't see Laura on Fox News. She's courageous. He's the one that uncovered mostly everything about Ilhan Omar. Instead, Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch comes along and claims credit for it and starts bogus investigations at the House Ethics Committee. I mean, it's run by Pelosi. I mean, it's not worth the paper it's written on. But Laura's the one who did it.
Yeah.
So, but what happens is that is a throwaway. In other words, a lot of my clients, these so-called conservatives on Fox News and these other networks, they'll take a shot at them and discriminate against them just to show that they're, quote, fair and balanced. Well, they're not fair and balanced, they're fair and imbalanced. Because it's people like you, Laura Loomer, Joe Arpaio, Roy Moore, many of my other clients. They're the ones who are courageous. They're the ones that are swimming upstream. They're the ones that are risking their lives. They're the ones who are having their reputation trashed, which is why I represent them. I'm having my reputation trashed, on a frequent basis. I don't care anymore because you know what? I'll see you in court. And, whether I win or lose, you want to trash Larry Klayman or my clients, we're coming after you legally.
That's what I love about you, Larry. People have got to get over to freedomwatchusa.org and support Larry. I mean, this is a tough fight. We've got to stay at it. We can't give up. But boy, the deck is really stacked. We're basically out of time here, Larry. Was there anything else you wanted to discuss tonight? We've covered a lot of ground.
Well, we covered a lot of ground, and it's an evolutionary process, Jason. I know the theme comes up, in all of my interviews, but the basic moral to the story is we don't have a government. Don't depend on the government. We have to do it for ourselves. We did it for ourselves in 1776. We created a great nation. We didn't look to King George III and his corrupt legal system to do it for us. And I would say that our legal system today is equally as corrupt to the British Crown in 1776.
Maybe worse, because technology gives them such a far reach. It's unbelievable. But Larry, I'm happy to have you on the show, and I'm happy to stand with you in these fights that we engage in. I hope it doesn't come to revolution, because I don't want any of that. I just want to drain the swamp and get things hopefully to a level.
I don't want that either, Jason, which is why I do what I do.
Yeah.
I'm a safety valve to that at Freedom Watch. We're trying to provide a vehicle to avoid that.
Absolutely. And we'll be back with some more citizens' grand juries and things like that in the future. I can't bring you these shows with Larry and the location shoots on citizen grand juries and things like that without your support. So I hope that people will also go to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. You can also go to patreon.com/freedomwatch and of course freedomwatchusa.org. It is really important, even if it's just a few dollars. As Larry is saying, each of us has got to take some action. Write a letter to your senator. They'll fill up their garbage bins with it. Go to Congress there if you're in Washington, D.C., knock on the door and let them know that you care. We've got to do something. And Larry, I want to thank you for joining me tonight. I want to thank everybody for watching.
Thank you, good friend.
Thank you, and Happy New Year, Larry. It's Yom Kippur.
Happy New Year, and I think it's time for all of us to atone.
Absolutely.
God bless.
Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for watching.